I'm Matt.
I'm Shane.
And if you like what you hear, make sure you hit that thumbs up button real hard, and make sure you subscribe to Comic Movie Marks.
And also click that little bell for all of the notifications.
Whee!
Always remember,
If Trailer Trash can do it,
anyone can do it.
Now the doorbell. That was the patriarchy that was ringing on my parade. Am I saying that I hate white dudes? No, I'm not. I do not need a 40-year-old white dude to tell me what didn't work for him about A Wrinkle in Time. It wasn't made for him.
In the middle of the night, my body yells, what you gonna do?
And for the third time, I don't hate white dudes.
But girls, they wanna have fun. Wanna have, that's all they really want.
hello and welcome everyone to another Comic Movie Marks video.
Brie Larson has been making a lot of headlines lately for most of her comments regarding Captain Marvel and this film almost being her form of activism. That's what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, usually we try to avoid politics somewhat on this show because, we're comic book guys. Who gives a shit? But Brie Larson now has officially made it impossible to talk about Captain Marvel without the politics behind it now. While being on this press tour, she has just repeatedly made it about some kind of form of activism.
She's even said in a recent interview, the movie was the biggest and best opportunity that I could have ever asked for. It was like my superpower. This could be my form of activism, doing a film that can play all over the world and be in more places than I can be physically. So you can kind of tell from those comments the direction that she's kind of taking this. She's had several other comments, maybe being interviewed by white dudes, that she's kind of tired of it and some of the stuff she's been doing.
Saying Captain Marvel's Brie Larson can't save womankind, but she's doing her best.
No.
Again, this is a really weird thing to deal with, especially with certain comic book movies, especially with Marvel movies, is that this is so politically driven. And you can't even talk about the movie at all in any fashion without bringing her up. And it kind of sucks. What are you going to do? You want to talk about movies? This person is making it all about politics. So how can you even talk about this movie? You can't. And now that she's been talking about inconsistency with the people that are interviewing her, that it's predominantly white dudes, as she put it, she kind of put her foot in her mouth. And at first, we start seeing all these projections, all these beautiful projections for Captain Marvel, $160 million opening weekend, which would be gangbusters for a origin movie. But then she keeps talking. And you know that saying, you let the person keep talking, eventually they'll put their foot in their mouth. And then we start seeing the apparent box office projections drop all the way down to 100 million plus.
This is coming from Cosmic Book News. It says the latest projections come from Deadline, with the site offering Captain Marvel will now open in line with other Marvel origin films, but won't come anywhere near Black Panther's $202 million. And Matt McGloin was the writer of this article, and he even talks about how Captain Marvel was a huge gamble for Disney and Kevin Feige, especially following the failure of Star Wars: The Last Jedi. And we all kind of know the angle that they took with that film, what it ended up kind of meaning, the divisiveness for that fandom. It says back in January, following the NCAA trailer, it was reported that Captain Marvel was projected to have a massive $160 million opening weekend, with some estimates even offering $180 million. But now it looks like Captain Marvel might be in big trouble.
Dun, dun, dun.
They're saying this is a risky film. Really, is it? I mean, yeah, it's a risky film when you have a woman like Brie Larson who just keeps constantly putting her foot in her mouth. Even if you maybe even agree with her, you got to understand that this is just, you're alienating a lot of people when you're doing this stuff. No matter what, however it goes, you're alienating a lot of people when you're doing stuff like this. And it's not like this is a surprise to Marvel at all.
Yeah, to touch on the comment regarding old white dudes, that actually came from the press junkets that she was having around A Wrinkle in Time. She even said, I don't need a 40-year-old white dude to tell me what didn't work about A Wrinkle in Time. It wasn't made for him. I want to know what it meant for women of color, biracial women, and teen women of color. So she's kind of taken this angle for a lot of her previous films, so this shouldn't have come to a surprise. What is surprising is that Kevin Feige or no one else has really stepped in and said, no, this film is supposed to be for a broad audience. Yes, it's obviously they want to champion their first female-led superhero movie, but it's supposed to be all-inclusive. That's what Marvel's about. They want to really cater to everybody and not limit their audience. Well, that's kind of what she's doing. So, it really makes you wonder, are they just kind of taking those comments with a grain of salt of like, oh, no, it'll still do well, and she can have her cake and eat it too, for lack of a better term. Where, the film does well, she can still say her comments, but maybe the majority of the audience don't know or frankly don't care.
Will the Marvel brand be able to carry this film even with her comments? That's the question. I'm sure it'll still make a profit because there's always going to be the people that want to know what happens before Endgame. And that's why this movie, I think, is shelved here. And that's why they may not care so much, because they know no matter how much she might piss people off, people are going to still be interested because they want to know what possibly affect Endgame. Anybody that likes comic book movies more than likely is going to see Endgame. In order to understand Endgame, you may need to see this one in case they do something significant in this one just to make sure it ties in. So now we got this another article talking about it's actually went up 20 million. So now it's in the $120 million plus range, and it just keeps fluctuating. And this is something that I found very funny. Riddle me this, motherfuckers. Does this actually mean anything? Is this actually showing how biased the media is? Because at this point, the projections are so all over the place. Either somebody is skewing the numbers are artificially inflated, or somebody is just calling the wrong motherfuckers. Because how can you have such a drop off? I get it. She says some ridiculous things. So you drop from $160-80 million projection down to 100. So what? Does that mean just everybody walked in and got returns on their tickets? All of a sudden now they're calling the same people again and they're saying, oh, well, no, she doesn't like white dudes. How do you assess these projections? Like, it seems like it's such an artificial number. And now, because she hasn't, for a week anyway at least, hasn't had anything stupid to say, it's back up at 120 million.
Think about that. That does not make sense.
I feel like this movie, depending on what its opening box office is, I am so intrigued on the opening box office of this movie, because whatever it might be, if it's lower than 100 million, it's going to show how biased the media is and how shill of a media we have towards Disney movies, activist type movies. As long as it fulfills their agenda in some manner, it will prove to the people how much this media is against the average folk. Like we talk about with Rotten Tomatoes, the gap between the audience score and the critic score is getting farther and farther with these blockbuster movies. And if this turns out in any manner to be almost the same thing again, but yet the box office is lower than what they're projecting, like drastically lower. I'm talking like, say it opens up to a $70 million box office, which is still great, but that's nowhere near what they're projecting. That's nowhere near what they're saying it is. And then if it does, there's obviously going to be a huge blame game on the people that didn't go see this movie or didn't want to participate in this form of activism.
The only guess that I have in regards to how they come up with the projected box office numbers is maybe based on pre-sales, how many theaters are going to be carrying the film, how many showings and how many tickets have been purchased at that point, and then roughly kind of the pace, that they're being sold at. And so I'm assuming maybe it's fluctuating all over the place based on God knows what, either her comments or like you said, maybe it's them trying to push their own agenda in terms of, oh, it's going to do well. Oh, no, it's not going to do well. Oh, this is a risky type movie for Disney to do. See, I'm right. Now it's not going to do all that well. It's really kind of up in the air how it's going to perform right now. We've talked about the lazy marketing, and it seems like they're just kind of pushing this out there and hoping just kind of the Marvel brand, as Matt put it, that kind of carries it, you know, right into Endgame, and that, oh, it's the first female-led superhero movie, and, you know, they've been kind of pushing that side, and, you know, maybe that's enough to be the wind beneath their wings.
It's interesting, and I wonder how many of these sites are sweating right now, or if they even care. Do people not pay attention enough to care? I mean, will they get blasted for this? If it happens, I'm not saying it will, but there's a possibility that these projections could be drastically either worse than what they say. It could be better, who knows? But a lot of the times, they usually overproject. I remember, I think Justice League was projected to be like 110, 120, somewhere around there, and it like bombed at 90. Maybe, I think it was maybe even less than that. So, I mean, these are off. To actually judge your ticket sales off of like, you know, how many theaters are opening and all that stuff, I mean, that makes sense. But to have a drastic drop off of $60 to $80 million and then improve by 20 later on, it feels like a kid with a calculator just fucking around trying to type in boobs backwards.
No shit.
We know that Brie Larson is this type of activist person, and whether you agree or disagree with it at all, this is not usually the type of marketing that a company like Disney wants. They don't want negative press at all. You know, there's that bad press is still good press type situation, but usually with Disney, they don't want negative press at all. I mean, just look back at when Battlefront 2 for EA, it had a shitstorm going around it. Disney came in and started like, hey, you know, EA, maybe you should really do something about your shit right now. Eventually, they didn't really do much about it, but still, they got involved in the situation because Disney doesn't want bad press. They hate bad press so much. When it came to the LA Times talking about how shitty Disney World was, they banned the LA Times from future screenings. That's how much they hate bad press. And that's where I feel like some of this shill media comes in. These people are scared to talk shit because right now Disney holds the rights to so many properties. Star Wars, Pixar, the Marvel Universe. I mean, think about all the things that they hold under their umbrella. They're about to own Fox. You know, it's going to be very hard to talk negative about a Disney movie when they have almost 50% of the movies in the box office. Is Disney not caring so much about the money in this case, but the message?
Not about money. It's about sending a message. Everything burns.
In case I don't see you.
Good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Congratulations, you made it to the end of the video. You're one of very few to make it to the end.
Yes, thank you very much.
Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to Comic Movie Marks Podcast and hit the notification bell. You know, all these fucking YouTube channels say this shit, so I'm going to say it now.
Yes, it's perfect. And if you want to hear our full podcast, you can check out our podcast on iTunes or any other podcast subscription service.
Make sure you subscribe. Thanks again.